good. It's kind of been very scattered in terms of like just life in general. Nothing's really been overly consistent since like the start of this whole thing. So it's just
Of
been kind of
course.
like random shit popping up, like, you know.
But it looks like you're getting loads of work pay out though.
Yeah, I
So,
would say so. Like, still looking for like kind of stable paid work,
sure.
slash kind of constant, well, not constant, like a constant demand, but like a reasonable amount of like commission based work. But like I've been venturing out a lot more outside of things that I thought I was gonna end up doing, and
Mm.
it's been paying off actually. So
Are you sort of able to rely on illustration stuff, or are you like working part-time or?
well, currently I'm sort of like, you know, because of the situation
Yeah,
with, I mean, I know we're kind of settling a little bit, but like my parents are kind of vulnerable. They've only just got their vaccine.
sure.
Um, so I've been just kind of living off my savings for a while, which luckily
No,
I've had
that's
quite a
fair
bit with
enough.
savings. So
No,
that was
that's
pretty
that's
cool.
fair.
Up until recently, though, I did sign on to Universal Credit just because I needed a little boost because, you
Yeah,
know, freaking my Adobe costs a lot. But
of course. Yeah.
that actually leads me on to a couple of opportunities that I found like surprisingly through that. Like I only signed on just for a couple of extra
Mm.
pounds to help towards house stuff and whatever.
Hmm.
And then like they've actually referred me to quite a few good, like they have like a thing called the Kickstart scheme.
Right.
And there's been some jobs on there which have been surprisingly good, and I've applied for like quite a few of them, but there's two in particular that I applied for, that I seem to be in with a pretty good chance with, so that's surprising. It's very much like you kind of have to, like, it sounds dramatic to say like, oh, you gotta like apply yourself and like go outside of what you would normally like
Mm.
look for. But like, yeah, generally you have to have some form of like, it sounds weird to say like I didn't have it before,
Mm.
but this kind of leads on to my main kind of conversational topic that I was wanting to kind of talk about, which is like art styles. I
Mm.
didn't, like, for the bulk of my degree, I knew I wanted to do animation, and I knew I wanted to like basically work in whatever sector of animation is
Yeah.
possible. I really don't mind as long as I'm working in animation, or even, you know, now illustration. Just shows how your mind can change. But like before I was very dead set. I had a goal and I was like, yes, this is what I want in life. This is
Hmm.
100% not deviating. This is what I want. And I wanted to work in a big studio and, you know, like do a bunch of shit, like command people, not command people, but like, you know, be kind of like nearer the top.
Sure.
Um, but then at the same time, as I wanted these like kind of big goals, I was also kind of like, I don't actually really know how to draw. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna learn the creative suite. I'm gonna learn how to animate really well. I'm gonna learn like, you know, squash and stretch. I'm gonna learn all of the freaking animation principles. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
great. I'm gonna learn Maya. I'm gonna learn all this technical crap. And then I was like, okay, so I can do all that, but I can't actually draw really. Like I can only make drawings that like stiff like first attempts at like drawing anime. Like I'm not really on that. Um so like partially there's two kind of things that kind of brought me to the way I am now in terms of my art style.
Right.
One of them was when I made my film at the beginning of last year, my thesis film. I basically wanted to, like, it was a film that was kind of supposed to be trippy and weird and stupid, so I was like, I'm gonna make my entire film look trippy, weird and stupid. So
Mhm.
I was very much like, okay, I'm gonna make an art style. I'm not even gonna think about what I'm drawing. I'm just gonna draw something and see how it looks. And
Mhm.
I didn't care. I was like, if I get the hands wrong, I don't give a shit. If I draw the eyes wrong, I don't care. If whatever I draw, I'm keeping in.
Yeah.
And I was so fucking surprised at how, like, just by completely not giving a shit, my art style just completely changed. And I was like, this looks really cool. What the fuck? And I was like amazed.
Was
Um,
was this your the one that we saw on the website on the final year show,
Uh, it
or
was
is
the like first it was the first draft one, which ended
Okay.
up being our final show. But yeah, it was that one.
Because
Um,
that I messaged you, I think, but honestly, I watched that about 3 or 4 times because it was so brilliant. Because what was it? It sort of reminded me of something from like a Netflix animation. You know where
yeah,
have you seen Final Space?
I haven't, but a lot of people
Oh,
refer me to it.
well, just because it's as simple. This is as surface level as it gets, but it's just like a space anime sort of thing, and it just gave me that sort of vibe because I'd seen it recently in that last sort of year, and when I saw that, I was like, I'd never seen your sort of work before. So yeah, I really loved it. So because
Yeah,
and obviously now it looks like you sort of well, obviously I didn't know you before then much before third year, but it seems like you've sort of carried that through, even with like your sort of canvases now and things like that. So,
yeah.
but no, so I interrupted you when you were talking through
Oh,
your style.
it's
Sorry,
fine.
yeah. So
Yeah.
because it's all right. So I kind of went through the same sort of thing with Josh and Naz, where so you sort of said already that you kind of went in with like this mindset, and it sounded like when I spoke to Josh that a lot of students in your course had that mindset where I guess illustration's like that, where if you've gone through to that point and you're like, I'm good at this, and you're
Mm.
set on it, so like you kind of came to that sort of conclusion that that project where you were just like, I'm just gonna try it and see where it goes, sort of thing, or
Yeah, I think my kind of motto has kind of turned into I learned how to draw when I stopped caring to learn how to draw. Because I feel like there's a lot of pressure on, especially like when there's like kind of casual artists entering like the competitive sphere.
Mhm.
You see some of the art that people put on Instagram and like, that you see in the comic books and on TV and shit. It's really fucking good art. I'm not bashing anybody. When you see those hyper realistic paintings of Billie Eilish, I'm always happy. I'm down for that. People can do that. But I
Mhm.
feel like we're getting a bit philosophical here. Um, but I feel like having talked to like a bunch of other people about this too, it's kind of led me to a conclusion, especially like I wish I knew this when I was younger. Detailed art doesn't necessarily mean that it's better than other types, because like
Mhm.
there's been multiple things that have kind of led me to my current art style as it is right now.
Yeah.
And it's been things that people kind of quirk their eyebrow at me. They're like, okay, and I'm like, no, it makes sense, trust me. And then when I explain it a bit more, and when I talk to people who are like more like like you guys, you will probably get it a bit more.
Mm.
I don't know if it's because I'm autistic, but I fixate on the weirdest fucking things. And like that's kind of cool in a way, because it's like I get inspiration from things that most people probably wouldn't even really care about. And then it's like when you think about it a bit more, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. One of my main things, especially when it comes to like animation, like illustration, it plays into it, but like mainly animation in terms of the way I make things move and the way I layer things and the way I like combine 2D and 3D. I've always absolutely loved the like aesthetic of like early PlayStation games,
Right.
like like the kind of vector graphic,
Yeah.
like triangles. Like it looks a bit like when you play them now, they don't look that finished. They have a
Mhm.
weird kind of like unpolished, like weird rawness to them, and they move in like a kind of weird unnatural way because obviously they didn't have the technology to
Mhm.
make things look super realistic. And I really like it when things look kind of broken and not finished. And that's kind of cool when you're an animator and you want to make something in that style, because it's like, hey, I've got an excuse to not make things like realistic. But like generally the way I view things is, I'm equally as impressed when someone does a really realistic painting of Billie Eilish, because I'm like, yeah, that's talent, that's skill. I'm not
Mhm.
knocking that at all.
Mhm.
People will look at that and think that is real art right there. And then I'm a little bit like, yeah, it is. It's a very good painting, but at the same time, it's like I kind of got this mentality from video games, like
Mm.
especially now we're in a phase where video games and movies and all this kind of shit is super realistic now. My thing is, it's not really like the kind of technology that you're using, it's more of how you utilize
Yeah,
that.
of course.
So
Yeah.
like, one of my favorite video games is Hitman, and that's a very realistic looking game. And the
Yeah.
reason why I like Hitman is because it's fun to play. I couldn't give a shit if they didn't look realistic enough. It just is fun to play, and I enjoy it. But then there are other games, like I'm probably going to catch some hands for this, but like The Last of Us, I don't really like that type of game anyway. But like the main selling point of that game was it looks so realistic, and
Mhm.
it's like where we're getting to a point now where watching like video game cutscenes is like indistinguishable from watching a real film. So we're getting to a point now in our kind of technological advancement in like film and media where you're going to look at something and you're not going to be able to tell it apart from real life. So you can't brag about that anymore. All through like the early 2000s to now, video game companies, like, you know, animation studios have been able to brag about, look how realistic this is. But now we're at a point where we're almost there. We're almost at perfect pure realism. And then you can't brag about that anymore. And when you go back and look at those pieces of media that were like hyped up to be super realistic, most of them I find actually don't hold up at all. Meanwhile, if you go back to like, you know, Crash Bandicoot, Vibribbon, all those kind of like early PlayStation games and like all those games that they were trying, bless them, but they just didn't have the technology.
No.
They knew that they couldn't make it look that good. So they focused a lot more on making it an enjoyable experience for people. And I think that is fundamentally the most important thing. And also the way that they works around things is so creative. And like, an example that always got to me, I know I'm rambling, but hey, an example that kind of always got to me and I still find super fascinating to this day is a PlayStation game called Vibribbon. And it's basically, it kind of, its whole gimmick was that it's levels that are formed by music. So you put in a CD and it generates a level based on the music that you put in. And it's really fun to play and it's very cute, but it's very, very simple. And the reason why it like looked simple, it was literally like a white line essentially with a little like rabbit, and it was like 3D like rendered, but it looked kind of 2D like scribbles. It's very cute. Some people find it creepy looking, but I find it cute. But the whole point of why they had to downsize it and make it so that it wasn't very realistic looking and it had very, very minimal graphics is because they had to, because like you could put a CD in and it was a PlayStation 1, so it didn't have much graphical capacity anyway.
Of course, yeah.
They reduced the like aesthetic of it, and they basically made it very simple lines, so that they could save space, so the game would be good rather than putting too much into the graphics. But they made the graphics work because that's a really recognizable style now. Like so many people look at that. The game started to get a resurgence recently and people have been talking about it. And I have to wonder, would people still be talking about it if it didn't look this kind of weird sort of like, you know, one dimensional sort of bizarre, like, you know, creepy looking, weird, cute sort of aesthetic. And if it looked super realistic and it was like a hyper realistic rabbit and all this, would people still be talking about it? I personally don't think so, but that's just my opinion. I'm on Instagram, obviously. I've been on Instagram for a while, but my main kind of more recent base of operations has been TikTok, because it's been like exploding and it's really, really good to go on there and like boost your kind of reach, I suppose. And, you know, just generally on like social media platforms with my work, when I've like, not when I first started doing it, because I do still feel like it sometimes, I feel like such a fucking baby compared to some people, because it's like, I look at my work and I'm like, oh, you know, it's very, you know, cute, fun, whatever you want to call it, bright, colorful, whatever. Sure. You know, there's nothing challenging about it. You don't look at it and you don't feel threatened by it. Like you're just kind of like, oh, that's nice. Like, you know, there's no like real kind of competitive spirit to my work in a way. It sounds weird to explain, but like, meanwhile, when you look at some of like the other creators and the kind of things that people are trying to live up to and the kind of people that you see who are trying to copy from, they're all the type of people who make like these really like intense, like you can tell they spent hundreds of hours on them, like these really crazy works of art. And it's like, yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. And like, you know, that person is so talented. And then, you know, absolutely they deserve their success 100%. I want to stress right now, I'm not knocking people that make those pieces of work, because they're great. However, they should not be the one and only thing that people should be aiming for, because the amount of people I see trying to copy big creators and like copy their art styles and try to get things super realistic, I'm like, no, like you have something here. Like there's one girl who's followed me on TikTok recently, like I can see she's not very confident in her work, and it's like, you know, she's not very old. I won't name drop her because she's younger, but you know, I see she's doing kind of repeating the same things that I would do. Like when I was first learning how to draw, like I would try to draw like, you know, manga and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, she's kind of, it's like you can kind of copy and take inspiration from something, but it's the fact that she like comments and things and she's like, oh, I wish I was this good and that kind of thing. And it's like, you can be though. Like I don't like the fact that she feels she's that young and she feels hindered from doing what she wants to do because she doesn't feel like she can match up with other people, when really it should be, yeah, those people are really good, but you know, what do you want to do? Like that was the only time really for me, like when I actually started questioning what do I want from my work, when I thought to myself, hey, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to ignore all of that stuff that I've learned before and I'm going to try something different. And that was the only thing that got me out. And you know, I just focused on myself entirely. I was like, I don't care what other people want to see, I don't care what other people do, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And if, you know, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'll be the judge of that. And that when I became the only person who came around to judging my work, when I was like, hey, you know what, I don't care what people think really, then that was when people started saying, wow, that's really cool. That's when I started gaining more of a following. That was when I started to, you know, really kind of get more confidence in my work.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's weird how people give that piece of advice of, oh well, you know, you have to be like, you know, you have to think about other people. No, you don't. I will tell you right now, you don't.
No,
I'm sorry,
that's it.
anybody that says, oh well, you know, you need to think about like what other people in the industry are doing, to an extent perhaps, only when that comes to business approach, like how you approach clients. That's the only thing to me that I would maybe say,
Sure.
take a look at other people and what they're doing. When it comes to your own work, I would say no, don't try and copy what the big players in the industry are doing. Like you don't want to be one of them, you know, you want to be a different person. And it's like, maybe it's because I've kind of had this freaking awakening recently, but it's like I've come to the point where, like, you know, going back to my original thing of, oh, I want to work in a big studio, like whatever. I'm now at a point where I'm like, you know what, I honestly don't give a crap what I end up working in, as long as I'm doing what I enjoy. Like I could be working in a freaking, I don't know, I could be working in an office somewhere doing drawings for a lingerie company. I do not care. Like if I'm doing what I do and I enjoy it, then I don't care if I'm scraping gum off the street while drawing. Like it's fine by me. Like I that's just in general, like I just like what I do so much that I don't really care where it leads me.
How did you sort of take the way that they taught you illustration in uni? Because obviously tutors you talk with a lot, and well, especially in third year, I feel like both illustration and graphics had a close relationship with specific tutors. How did how did you sort of take like tutorial feedback? You know, if you're saying where you had a sort of, so let's talk specifically in third year where you're starting to get it and you're making these things, and you know the mindset of sort of, I want to do this, and I, you know, not to say that you don't care about what people think, but you liked it, so you made it. Did that hinder the sort of tutorial and the sort of uni element of it, or did you sort of just sort of ride it as it went?
Actually, I think like just in general, like it really did help. Like, because sometimes I'll talk to my friends who haven't been to uni and then they'll say like, oh, like what do you think it was worth it? And I'm like, of course. Like I know some people, it's not for everybody, like, you know, that's fine. Some people get perfectly good careers not by going to uni, and that's fine. But personally, I think it helped me a lot because I was pretty like, you know, before I was more kind of like close-minded, and I was more like, I have to fit in this specific box and I have to do this specific thing. Like, you know, especially when it comes to like digital animation and stuff, I was like, I'm going to use these programs and I'm going to do this specific technique and I'm going to follow these rules and all of this. Like, you know, you can literally buy the like book that tells you everything about animation. I can't remember who it's by. I'm a fucking animation graduate. I can't remember the name. I want to say Dick Williams, but I don't think that's right. I feel like I've been yeah, I think let's just say Dick Williams. If it's wrong,
I can always link it.
Me, but yeah, it's fine. That guy. And yeah, it would like tell you everything you need to know. But then also, like when I was in third year, especially with like our tutors, they were very much like, oh, you know, get out big pieces of paper and throw ink around and stuff like that. And for the longest time, like I'd heard about all that, and I was thinking, yeah, but that's not really going to help me. Like, I want to be a digital animator. How is any of this helping me? Like, I
Sure.
don't understand. Like, I will freely admit that was my mentality for a while. I would do it, but more of because I had to rather than because I wanted to.
Yeah, yeah,
Then when I started to kind of think, hey, I need to come up with some really experimental, bizarre shit for this film. Like, you know, I need to be much more like, how am I going to figure out ways around this? And then, you know, suddenly all of what they were saying made sense. And I was like, oh my God, continuous line drawings are amazing. Like, it's like when I had that thing of like, I would draw buildings and I would just be staring at the building and I wouldn't look down at my paper and I wouldn't take my pen off the paper. That was a technique that I'd been told for ages. And I was just like, whatever, I'm going to not do that.
yeah,
But then when I did it and I looked at my piece of paper, I was like, oh my God, that looks so cool. Like, I loved it. It looked so weird and it was exactly what I was wanting. So like, there were a lot of techniques that I learned there that I still continue to use now, like just even through observation, like cool textures and thinking, oh, how could I apply that? Like, you know, you've seen my stuff before. You know that sometimes I like to mix in like realistic looking things or whatever.
yeah.
Like, I have that mind now where like I'll be walking around and I'll be like, damn, look at the veins on that leaf. That's so cool. Like, I'm gonna turn that into something later, maybe. And like, you know, I'll think about things that I've seen, like specific colors. Like, I have much more of an open mind to be like, you know, looking at mundane things and think, oh wow, that's pretty cool actually in its own weird little way. I'm gonna maybe apply that to something. And that's kind of just in general life, like that's helped me. Again, getting philosophical here, but like being able to look at something boring and being able to take something cool away from it, like I really like that. And I'm glad that I can do that now, because, you know, sometimes people just be there and be like, oh, there's nothing worth anything here, it's just an empty boring like parking lot or whatever, like there's nothing cool about this. But then to be able to have been through that whole thing of being able to like overly observe things, I could just be walking in that parking lot and be like, hey, the way that the letters have faded from the like floor here, the pattern, like the cracked pattern looks really cool, like that could be used for something. And just in general, like the observational skills I learned there, and like, you know, I do sometimes use like alternate mediums. I'll sometimes like mess around with charcoal or whatever and then like scan it in and do stuff. My work isn't mega textured, but I do think a lot more about like, oh, maybe some kind of weird fonts would be cool, or I could overlay some colors. And like, I think a lot more about that now rather than before I would try to just meticulously draw every little thing. But then now I'm just like, I can throw a texture over that, it'd be fine.
That's it. I mean, because I think it was sort of similar in graphics in the way that you sort of, well, I know a few people sort of went in and, you know, everyone sort of you sort of go in thinking, I've got to have a certain level of understanding in Photoshop, maybe Illustrator, and you sort of start to develop something by, you know, second year, let's say. And second year for us was that sort of year where you're saying where everyone had to do something that they didn't want to do, and that was a challenging year because, I mean, especially for Naz, where obviously, you know, now he was an Illustrator student, but he was in design, in graphics. And some of the, you know, fundamental graphic challenges we were doing, where we were taking, you know, textures or type or breaking stuff down and doing things that realistically I hadn't really seen anybody in our class do, and everyone took it, you know, generally speaking, in that summer and going into third year, all people were talking about was, oh, last year was so crap, because they just didn't think that they, you know, because you always have that in the back of your mind where you're like, I need to make a strong portfolio here, and I can't do it because I'm not doing the thing that I'm good at, or I'm not doing the thing that I'm confident in. But looking back from third year to that year, it was vital, because you start to, I don't know if you start to think critically or not, but I feel like that was definitely something I took, because and generally speaking, I still do it, where even if I'm in my job, I'll sort of have this first brain spark, a spark of an idea, and I'll start it and I'll sort of be like, oh, actually, hold on, let's try like 3 or 4 different ways I could do it before I just sort of, you know, crack out something. And I think it's that mindset that a lot of people got from being at uni generally, where you have to criticize yourself sometimes. And
Absolutely.
I found that the best thing was, and often a lot of people didn't like doing it, but I was more than happy to rip into people's work in second and third year. Where no, but like, you know, you look around and you'd be like, this is great. And you start
Yeah.
to look at yourself and the way you're doing something, and you can be like, I could do this, I could do that. And I think once you start doing that, or at least I feel like once you start doing that sort of thing, that's when you can get a lot stronger, because you've got all these different things in your locker that you would have developed in those 3 years. And if you end up applying even half of them in the way that you're doing it, it could be quite a strong way of working. So I mean, most of the people who went to uni who I've spoken to have all said it was worth it, in the sense where they didn't actually, I don't know how much people improved technically, but in the way that they think and the way that they go about things is a lot
I
better
feel
now.
like that's like a thing I hear a lot from people who like are very like not anti-uni, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like when it comes to art subjects, they think it is just that, like, oh, they're just telling you how to do this. Well,
yeah,
it's like there's two things that are like majorly, like I'm not one of those people that like obsesses over like anything really. So like I'm not the person to get into like arguments like no university is good, because I understand it's not for everybody. But two
yeah.
things that I took away from it personally was the just general being around several people, hundreds of people that
Hmm.
were in a similar kind of thing to you.
Yeah,
So you could walk around like every day, you'd go to this building and it's like full of work that loads of people have made, and then you'd look around and then you'd be like, oh, that looks cool, like, maybe I could figure out a way how to learn how to do that. Like I found out things that I would never have found out if I didn't go to uni.
yeah,
And
100%.
like, being with people and like being able to just ask anybody like, hey, what do you think of these colors, do you think they work well, and like getting loads of like peer reviewing basically.
Yeah, yeah,
um, and then that in turn helped to build connections. Secondly, again, I really don't think that I would have got the confidence and kind of critical eye for my own work to
yeah,
be able to kind of evolve if I didn't go to a place that was full of people that were doing similar stuff to me,
yeah,
because it kind of gave me perspective and made me think a lot more about what I was making. Because I feel like if I hadn't been at all, I'd probably still be drawing the same crappily done anime drawings as I was 5 years ago. So like that helped me, like, because my main thing was I used to draw like kind of anime inspired stuff, and I mean that was cool. But
sure.
funny story, now I literally, the only anime I've seen in like the past 3 years has been JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, so don't even really watch it that much. But like I was very set on that specific art style, which is a little bit dangerous anyway, because how many people draw anime? Like everybody draws anime. Like it's not really distinguishable. But then like you can kind of definitely tell that it's in there, like in my art style it's like partially inspired by it.
Yeah,
But it's like that's like a facet of it, so I've clung on to that a little bit just as like a baseline. But then I've had the kind of like strength to be able to be like, no, that's not where I belong entirely. I'm going to take a tiny little slice of this cake and then go to another party, you know what I mean?
no, but I mean that's pretty spot on in the way that, and that comes back to what we were saying earlier, where you can't look at people on Instagram and be like, oh God, she's so much better than I am, or in this way, because because I can say personally, when I went to uni on that first day, first thing I'm thinking is how nervous I am, because I'm like, where do I rank in
Yeah,
this pile? And by the third year, when you start talking with everybody, and I tried to speak to a lot more people in my last year, because I had that sort of light bulb moment where I was like, we're leaving this year and I want to really get to know like what people are doing and the way they work.
yeah,
And then once you start twisting that mindset from, this is really competitive, I need to be on top here, to then just being like, I'm doing what I'm doing, it'd be great to learn and keep like talking to people and gather information generally about different ways to work. I think that's a lot more valuable when you leave as well, because
definitely.
you think in a way that you're like, it's competitive, don't get me wrong, no one's saying it's not competitive, but if you can sort of take that mindset where you're like, I do what I do, and this is my style which I've developed, and like you say, like you take a slice out of different things, I think you pick up throughout the way. and
Yeah,
um and I think,
like
yeah,
just in general, like the way I kind of would maybe say is going back to like not comparing yourself to others.
yeah,
It's like it can be hard, like there are friends that I have who have been on the course who I'm seeing now, they're getting so many clients and they're doing really really well,
sure, sure.
and then there's just me sitting here like, maybe someday. But then that is honestly, it can feel like at first like, oh damn it, everyone's doing so much better than me. But then at the same time, it's like, when I do get that client who will come to me and be like, hey, really like your stuff, could you do this? I will know in like deep down, like, hell yeah, they came to me for me. And
Yeah,
like, not because I decided to change my style, not because I decided
that's
to try
it.
and conform to anybody. They came to me because they liked my raw, what I do. So like,
Yeah,
it's the same with my social media presence. Like, there's so many things that I could do, and I know I could do to
yeah,
get more people following me. And
yeah,
like, I sometimes I'll sit there and I think, should I play into it? Should I do that thing that will get me more popular? But then I'm like, no, I don't think I will. I think I'm just going to ride it out, because like, every time I get a new follower, I can be confident in the fact that this person is following me because they like my work. And I don't care if I'm like millions of followers behind other people. Like, all those people who follow me like my work, and therefore they like me. And that feels just so much better in general, because I'm like, hey, that applies to clients too. Like, I'm getting paid for my work, but
yeah.
it's like, I want to know that those people like my work. So
So going from uni, how and the way that you've just explained in the last like half hour about the way that you work and your style, when you do get approached by clients, how do you sort of not advertise, but how do you present yourself in the way that, because you said obviously you can take inspiration from people by the way they interact with clients. Is there a certain way that you go about it, or does it change depending on who you're interacting with? Or
I'm very much the same with
right,
basically everybody. Like, I've applied for it, mainly I'm in like the applying stage. I've had a couple of smaller clients, but nothing like groundbreaking yet.
sure, okay,
But I've been applying, especially in like the past couple of weeks, I've been applying for quite a few places. So I'm waiting to hear back from quite a few.
right,
I originally wanted my approach to be very casual. This was before I started applying for clients when I was in third year. So this is another
mhm,
good thing that uni taught me. Um, I was there and I was thinking, how am I going to conduct myself? Because essentially, I'm going to be a businesswoman. So I need to think about that as well. Like,
yeah,
how am I going to approach clients? Obviously, be nice. That is a piece of advice that I think everybody should
yeah,
have.
yeah.
So obviously, I'm not going to be a complete bitch, like, hey, give me a job. But, I was like, how am I going to present myself? Because obviously, it's basically my personality kind of is my brand as well. And then
Yeah,
I was thinking, especially when I left uni, this kind of reinforced that. I was thinking, it doesn't really make sense for me to compose a business email and be like, hello, my name is Asia McNeilly and I am an illustrator and animator. I am also blah, 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 and just be really, really bland and really like, here are the links to my social media. Like, really, like
yeah,
bland,
yeah.
completely emotionless, basically cold. But then like when I talk to people in real life about my work, I'm like, yo, how's it going? Like, very chill, casual.
That's it.
And I was like, how, and then obviously when you look at my art style, it doesn't really strike you as very deep or like, existential or
Sure.
serious. It's
Yeah,
obviously supposed to be fun and cute and whatever else.
yeah,
So I was like, hey, I'll probably present myself the same way I would anyone else. So all of my business emails are just like, hi, how you doing? My name's Asia. Like, obviously keeping it within like, I'm qualified in this and I have this. I'm a very serious person when it comes to this. However, presenting myself as me and being like,
absolutely.
hi, very chill, very happy, that kind of thing. Because like when I was at uni and we were checking out people's websites, I was having like a thing of like, how am I going to present myself to clients?
Yeah,
Um, and like, because obviously I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I could be approached by someone for like a massive company or something.
yeah,
And then I thought to myself, how would I possibly be able to stand there in front of, I don't know, can't think of a company, but like someone really, really big
yeah,
and act like I am now. Like, oh, what? They probably would kick me to the curb. Like, they wouldn't want me if I'm like that. But then I'm like, no, because again, that leads back to my thing from before of I would only want to work for people who like my work. And
yeah,
then by extension, that would be me. And it would be like, hey, again, it wouldn't make sense for me to completely switch up and be like a completely different person just because I'm in front of someone who's like got a bigger presence or whatever. Like, I want to be the same.
yeah.
And like I've seen when I was at uni, they showed us examples of like people who have gone on to be pretty successful who went to UCA and like they formed collectives and like they've got like animation studios and like a bunch
Mhm.
of stuff. And the way they present themselves perfectly mirrors their work. So it's like there was one company that was like they were very like, they do a lot of like environmental work. So they had a very like relaxed, very neutral toned kind of aesthetic to their work, and they were very like, you know, we care about, you know, and then they were talking like very calmly and very like, it was very relaxing aesthetic on their website. So clearly it was supposed to be serious but also very relaxed. So it was like, oh, okay, so that's their approach. Meanwhile, there was another animation company that was more like wacky and fun, sort of like mine, and they were also kind of quirky and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And obviously real clients will be seeing that website, and then that's when it really sunk into me to be like, hey, you know, I should have the confidence to approach people, and like when people approach me, to have that energy that matches my kind of work and just generally just is like myself, because they're hiring me as a person as well as hiring me for my work. So it's like, I don't see why you should have to try and subdue yourself to act like a freaking like LinkedIn professional, whatever. Like this isn't freaking Canary Wharf. Like you don't have to try and be like a HSBC banker or whatever. Doesn't make sense. We're artists, you know. Obviously, don't be like, you know, one of those people that just doesn't give a crap about deadlines. Keep yourself professional when it comes to that. Maintain good communication. Like, you know, I've recently worked with somebody who wanted quite a few different pieces, so I was very much like, you know, anytime I encountered any form of technical error or if they wanted anything revised, I would be very much like, you know, oh, hey, okay, so these are the exact problems I'm facing right now. And then, you know, I would explain that very clearly. Like I would keep very casual and fun and happy, but then it's just like I would explain to anybody. Like if someone came up to me right now and was like, hey, I'm having a problem with this, I'd be like, oh, okay, sure, come here, I'll help you out. Like I'm not gonna, you know, not engage with that, you know. I'm not gonna, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say.
Like, no, that's it. I mean, because I think it's a general sort of thing that, I mean, a few people who I've spoken to about the whole thing of client work is that people get that you are a brand in a sense, and with in what I do, I work with quite a few big brands, and there's very strict guidelines to the way that they want me to work on something for them to present, you know, and it's all this thing of consistency and the consistency of the way you present yourself on social media, the way you present your website, and then eventually when they talk to you, the way you present yourself. Because if it's like with any brand, say if Facebook changed their interface but they didn't change their app, or you know they you know they changed something, or they acted differently in something but not another, you'd think, well, that's a bit of a crap brand. So it comes back to that basic sort of thing where once you start to get that, you know, although you're an artist, you're still, you know, your website will have your name in it, so you're in essence the brand that people are buying. So it's that's like such a, well, I think that's a very strong way to kind of go about it, is that when you do get clients, you're just, well, keeping it sort of real with them in a sense, aren't you? Because
definitely,
yeah, I think people see through it as well. If you try to be super, you know, different to the way that clearly your art shows, or the way that you show yourself in another way.
I was just thinking like that I when I sit there and I draw sometimes and I make something, I do look at it and I do think sometimes I'm just kind of like, oh my God, I'm an adult, I'm gonna be paid for this kind of thing, I can't believe I'm doing this. But then it's also like, you know, people do pay for that kind of thing, so like
absolutely,
it's profitable. And it's like, you know, I completely agree. Like sometimes you'll look at something and be like, yeah, that person didn't write this, like that's not that person I'm hearing here. Like, you know, like when the freaking YouTubers do their apologies, you can just tell that that's their like crisis management team just like writing something, like it's not from them, and it's like you can tell they're just reading from a script. And it's just like, just in general and in life, I wish people would be more genuine people, companies in general. Like it really does add something when I see like a bit more of a genuine sort of approach to anything. Because again, if I don't know, Facebook's a good example. If they were all like, you know, they have a pretty, I don't really like them in general, like as a company, but like, you know, their general kind of vibe on their website is very much like connecting friends, like that sort of thing. It would be different if one day they just pulled a 180 and were like, you know, all about like internet safety and nobody talk to anybody. It would be
That's
really
it.
bizarre.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, you know, they have to maintain some consistency there. Quite recently, this is again much more of a smaller thing, but I run an Etsy store
Yeah.
where I sell some stuff, as you probably know. And
Yeah.
I've also recently, plugging this right now, opened up a micro shop at Walrus and Oyster in Canterbury. So I'm selling my stuff there too.
Right.
But like my online Etsy store is completely run by me. Like there's no middleman, there's no people in a shop. It's just me in my bedroom with all my stock selling
Yeah.
things. So there's like, you know, sometimes I'll have people leave like notes and stuff just saying nice things about my work, because most of them find me through social media, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Recently, like on TikTok, I'll do like small silly little doodles just to have some fun there to make it look a bit more lively. Recently I've actually included this in the picture like thing that I sent you for
Yeah.
the podcast with like I did a little like kind of sketch of some cereal, and
I saw.
it's like
Yeah.
little bacteria, because you know I'm interested in that kind of thing, like strange little science things. So I was like, oh, it's pretty cute, I'll make like a little cereal commercial with these little bug creatures. So like it was pretty cute, but it only took me like 10 minutes to do. I was just
Yeah.
like, I'll just do it for some fun. And then I had someone order, I think it was a pin. I think it was a pin and a t-shirt somebody ordered. And then she left a note and she was like, oh, I really like your like little drawing that you did of the cereal, like bacteria cereal. And she was like, I was just wondering if you had like, if you could like include like a little drawing or anything to do with that, because I just love it so much. And I was like, interesting, because I didn't think anything of it. And that's another thing that I find amusing, when people just do something. I mean, I can't see it myself, but like
Yeah.
when I just draw something and I'm just like, I don't fucking care, I'll just draw something, and then people see it and it's like they're seeing it for like the first time, whereas you've had to stare at it for ages and you kind of get bored of it.
That's
And then
it.
they're like, that the fact that they're that interested in it kind of is like, oh wow, you like it that much, really? Like it's interesting. But like I was like, okay, fine. And then I was thinking, oh, you know, I could probably do something. And I basically messaged her back saying, I'll see what I can do. And I had some sticker paper left, so I made some stickers, and I was running out of ink, so only a few of them turned out decent, but I included one of them in the like package.
Yeah.
And you know, that was just because she asked for it, and I was like, well, you know, she likes my work, and it doesn't take much out of my day to print out a couple of stickers with it, and I
No,
did.
yeah, that's
And
it.
she really liked it. So you know, if anybody was like, hey, I really like this, obviously not being like, hey, really like your work, I'm only going to pay you £5, but could you do me a whole canvas? Like,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
go away.
I got you.
But
That's it.
if it's just a little thing, like, you know, or something just in general that I'm like, yeah, I could do that, like, of course I'd be perfectly willing to.
That's it. I mean, this is like a sort of linking to your Etsy, actually. This is like a more, well, this hits home for me, actually, where, you know, I sold a few things on Etsy and, you know, a few posters or whatever. But, you know, so before you sort of like make, I don't know, do you print them yourself for Etsy, or do you go and send them off to, I think you send them off, don't you, to be printed?
Yeah.
And then, yeah. So like, for me, like, how do you know what you think would be successful in your shop and what won't be? Or do you just sort of think this is strong, I think people will buy? Or, you know, do you take it to your social media first to get a general response? Or, you know, how does that sort of drive? Because I sort of just printed some and was like, if it sells, it sells. I just, you know.
I've had a mixed approach with like it depends on the products, and I factor in a couple of things when I make each thing. So obviously I don't have like a whole load of things, but I have a nice mixture of products, I
Yeah.
think. Generally, because my main things, my main exports, if you will, are pins. Like I've got a couple of, like, I've got a few t-shirts and then there's some sweatshirts. Currently I only have 2 designs, but hey.
No.
And yeah, mainly the pins, t-shirts, and obviously sometimes my canvases.
Yeah.
When it comes to the pins, I think I do think a lot more about whether or not this will look good, whether or not people will buy it, because I'm spending quite a lot on, like, I manufacture them. Like obviously I don't make them all by myself
Sure.
at home
Yeah.
because they're made of gunmetal, but I send off to get them manufactured.
Yeah.
So I do have to think, is it going to be worth the money that I'm putting into this, and
course.
will they be successful? And I've had 4 different designs so far. I think I probably might make one more set in a little bit, like if I get, you know, a little bit more of kind of an interest, when, because the shop that I sell them through is currently closed because they're having some electrical work done, but when it reopens I'll be able to see. But looking at the 4 designs that I currently have, I can definitely see trends in which ones sell better. Like my first one was actually probably my most successful one, and it's very kind of minimal, and you know, it's the little planet one. It's the little astronaut. I mean, I know they're all kind of astronauts, but like they're one specifically most people can tell is an astronaut. That one's very simple, and like when you look at it from a distance, it just looks aesthetically very understandable, and you know, it's cute, it's fine. And the color schemes work nicely, and it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. Then I have another one that I released recently, which is doing fairly well, which is a similar kind of thing. Like the other one had like more pastel colors, but then this one's like red, yellow, and blue. And I was just like, oh, I'll diversify my options. I'll have like some like different colors in case not many people like the pastels, but they still want to buy something. And then there was another one which was a little bit more clustered and crazy. That one's doing okay, nothing like to shout home about. My least popular one was the epoxy resin. Like it's tougher, it's like stronger, and like it's better if you like have it on like something that you know might get a bit beat up. But like aesthetically it doesn't look as bold and as colorful as the other ones. So I think definitely, I mean, I don't know if it's just the expectation that I've set through my own work, but people seem to prefer the really bright, crazy colored ones than the just kind of more dull one. When it comes to my canvases, honestly, I just paint them and then I'm like, I'll put this up and see what happens, and then put it up. When it came to t-shirts, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not gonna act like I'm up on a high horse, like I really thought about this. It was 3 o'clock in the morning and I was it's a great start to any story. It was 3 o'clock in the morning and I was just like messing around on Photoshop, and I was like, this would look cool in a t-shirt, oh my god, this would look so cool. And then I ordered 50 of them, and then I woke up and I was like, okay, I've spent money on these. But that one's done pretty well, surprisingly. And I was like, oh, okay, I've still got some left and I'm selling them on my online store, but I'm like, they did pretty well. And then there was another one, which is my sweatshirts. And, you know, I only made a couple of them. It wasn't 3 a.m. when I made them this time, so I was a bit more consciously aware. But it was just a cute little doodle that I did for TikTok, and I was like, oh, this would be kind of cute on a sweatshirt, I think. So I made them and they turned out very well. I have thought a little bit about, like, this is kind of bringing in some of my ethics here. I was thinking about, like, because I got them made and I wanted them decently high quality, because you know, I don't really want to just sell like crappy quality things to people, believe it or not. So I got like the kind of best quality of what I could afford, and they had like really good reviews, and like a lot of people who've bought them have said, oh my god, they're so comfy, they're so nice. I'm not self-plugging here, by the way. Like, a lot of people have said like, oh yeah, they're really good, and that's good, because I only made 25 of them, well 24 if you want to count the fact that I keep on my portfolio. But like my main reason as to why I decided to make those specifically less is because like I'm pretty strong on the whole anti-fast fashion thing. Like I don't agree with pumping out needless amounts of clothes that, you know, you're not possibly, like, especially if they're not like built to last for that long, or if they've got like you know, polyester and stuff in. Like I don't vibe with polyester. I don't like polyester. It's very bad for the environment. That's my personal thing. I understand that some people can't, you know, not everyone can not afford to buy something that's like not 100% natural materials, and I'm not knocking anyone for that, but just me personally, as somebody who has that choice, I would rather not contribute. But then in this instance, I was in the situation where I'm like, I kind of don't have a choice. I can't afford to buy the like sustainable option. So I decided I'll tell myself what, I'll only make a couple, because then it's like, I'm not making thousands and thousands, and I'm not making hundreds and hundreds, and I'm not needlessly creating a demand for something that, you know, is just supposed to be just something cute, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So I was like, I'll only make a couple, and quite a few of them have sold actually. I've still got a few left, but quite a few of them have sold. And like the way I see it now, that was kind of like a trial run. And I'm like, okay, they did decently well. And then now I know that in the future, if I was to make any other clothing things, because my t-shirts aren't a problem because they're 100% organic cotton. So it's like, oh, okay, that's fine. Are they organic or are they regular? I think they might be regular cotton. Sorry, I misspoke. But either way, it's a natural material. So it's like, I know it's not the best you can buy, but it's like better than polyester. But like personally, if I was to make any other clothing things, I would maybe splurge a little bit more to get like less, like, so it's not like a whole bunch. But I would maybe splurge a little bit extra to maybe get like 20 or 15 like ethically made like sweatshirts with like 100% natural cotton, and like, because they are pretty expensive. I was surprised at how expensive they are to get like done, for like the really really like, hey, we're totally ethical sort of ones. Like it's expensive, but it's like, you know, worth it, I guess, in the long run.
I think you'd get people. Well, I'd actually think because on Etsy, I think a lot of people share that sort of ethical value. So I actually think you'd probably get some customers purely on the base. Obviously, they'd like your design, but I bet you'd get some buyers that will buy it because of the fact that they're made from specific materials, and they know that it's ethically made. Yeah, that's it. I think I would as well. And well, again, you don't know what deters buyers from, you know, the difference between putting them in a basket and pressing buy could be something as small a detail as that. So it's a good way to think.
I'm pretty like, you know, I don't mind it as much with this specific bunch because I'm like, again, there's only 24 of them out there in the world. I don't think it's that big of a problem. And especially like looking at it scientifically, the main reason why, well, there's two main reasons why polyester isn't great. One of them is the fact that it's made from like crude oil, earth, dead dinosaurs, not great. Second of all, like the fact that when you wash polyester clothes, it can shed microfibers into the water, and that's not really good for anybody.
Yeah, sure.
But then, I mean, it is they are made of a polycotton blend, so it's mainly like, it's kind of like a mix between cotton and polyester. So it's not 100%. I definitely wouldn't get my fair 100%.
Sure.
But like, I kind of have that thing of like, I haven't been that bad because it's like there's only 24 of them in the world, and I can have the conscience of, I've not contributed massively towards this problem, and I would never contribute towards it again with that material. Like I would happily splurge out on a little extra to get minimal made. And especially since I've kind of noticed a trend where, like, you know, it's like, again, people are more willing to buy something if they know that it's kind of, I mean, I know it's not on everybody's mind, but it's especially more prevalent now where people are more like, oh, what's the ethics behind this sort of thing. But also just like, you know, I want to feel good about my purchase, so I would like to help contribute towards that. And just knowing myself, like as a person who's making these things, like just to be like, hey, like I don't really think I want to be contributing towards a huge demand with anything like clothing related, because I think clothing's more of, it should be more of like an investment rather than just something you just buy. But like, yeah, I would be happy to do that in the future. Obviously not anytime soon. I've kind of taken it upon myself to be like, the main future of my shop is mainly going to be pins and like prints and canvases. Honestly, my clothing was more of just an experiment to see what would happen and to just say that I've done it. So
but you've got to do those things, haven't you, to see potential and growth as well. And I think well, me personally as a buyer, I quite like things that are limited runs. So say if you did have 10 t-shirts which were, you know, spot on, ethically made, sorry, you know, I'd buy a limited run than, you know, a polyester t-shirt that you can grab in H&M or wherever. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's definitely potential in that way, and especially on Etsy, because I think a lot of buyers share that same ethical approach sort of thing.
It's like become more common as well. Like I've noticed with a lot of like streetwear brands, they'll do like drops, and then it'll be like in that limited time you'll be able to get like whatever. But the only problem I find with those is that it kind of, a lot of companies that do that, like I think it started out more on that sort of the same sort of mentality really. Like it was like an artist, and it's like exclusive because it's like, you know, a lot of people would buy them because it's like, oh, you know, maybe they had the same ethics as what I'm thinking of, like I'd rather not contribute massively to a huge needless buying of clothes.
Yeah.
But then now it's kind of turned into more of a commercialized thing, and it's like it's more of like scalpers buying hundreds of them and then selling them for ungodly amounts, and then it's like drops happen like all the time now, and
True.
collabs happen all the time, and it's like it's good if you're working with the right companies, because I'm not saying that all companies that release like these things are bad, absolutely not, because I think it's actually a better approach than a lot of them, and I kind of wish a lot more companies would do it, really. It's the same with like we're getting a little off topic here, but like, you know, it's the same with like companies that do like, you know, I learned recently, I've been doing quite a lot of research into fast fashion and stuff. I learned recently that with a lot of like online retailers, like I've worked in fashion like before, like doing like retail stuff.
Yeah.
And we have like, you know, kind of seasons, so to speak. So it's like, you know, the spring summer collection or whatever.
Yeah.
It used to be just that, like there would be spring, summer, autumn, winter. Then it turned into spring, spring slash summer, summer, summer slash autumn, autumn slash winter, and then it would be like micro seasons. And now apparently in the online sphere of online shopping, obviously online sphere, but you know, online shopping, there's 52 micro seasons. So it's basically every week there is a season of clothes, and it's like, oh my god. And then like places like Shein or Cheyenne or however you say it, they produce like 11,000 of each piece, and that means there's literally basically millions of pieces of clothing being made per month, and it's so pointless to me. And I'm just like, it's sad because like I see like some people on my Instagram who, like, you know, some people I used to go to uni with and stuff like that. You know who you are when I'm saying this. You know, some people have made some really cool like stuff themselves, like, you know, hoodies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like they're making their kind of own smaller brand stuff. And, you know, it's really personal because it's like a lot of them are printed themselves, you know, because they have the capacity to do that. And it's just like, you know, they're working so hard and like they have their own original designs. And it's like, you know, you can buy that and be like, hey, it's almost like I'm a part of an exclusive club here. And it's like you feel so much more like I've supported somebody themselves, and also I've got this cool thing that I can wear that not many people have. And it's like it's still sad to see people like individual creators be so overdone by like all of these big fast companies, because it's fine to buy from those companies if you just need clothes. Like if you're like a mum of 3, you just need some clothes for the kids, sure, okay, that's fine. But if you're like just someone like me who, you know, just wants to buy things because they look cool, like you shouldn't need to spend like £500 on these like fast fashion companies, because they're not made with any heart. And a lot of the time, like my big reason why I'm going so hard on Shein here is because they steal designs from smaller creators, and that is like a like executable sin to me. Like I'm just like, it's horrible. And I just wish that like the mentality was, I understand that buying from smaller creators isn't a thing for most people because, you know, some people can't afford it. But it's just that leads me back to my whole thing about like hyper consumption and people expecting things on the fly all the time or to be a certain way. Like there's a real pressure, especially on people who are wanting to start clothing companies and like just apparel companies, especially when they've got ethics, is because people expect them to have hundreds of the same design. And it's like, no, it shouldn't have to work like that. Like if you're buying, especially if you're buying them from like a small creator, basically it might sound pretentious, but you're buying a piece of art. Like treat it like that, you know?
No, but that's literally what it is, right? You know, and it's the fact that I think, leading to that expectation that we as artists can't make thousands on the fly like these companies can. And you'd think that that'd be obvious to some buyers, and yet the price deters people because maybe they don't know the background or the ins and outs of the process needed. You know, like what you covered earlier about the whole thing of making your clothing. It's something that I think still goes over people's heads, but
a big thing with me, sorry to interrupt, but while we're still on this topic, that's another problem I encountered recently, and that doesn't just lead into my Etsy stuff, it also leads into just me generally when I approach clients or when clients approach me. A huge thing has been the money situation and how much I should charge, because it's like with my pins, I was like, okay, so I've made these pins, I'll drop a big secret here. Each one of them costed £1.85 to manufacture, so, you know,
Yeah.
That's not much, but then obviously I had to order 100 of each of them, so it was like nearly 200 for all of them, which isn't actually that bad when you think about it. But obviously I've got 4 different sets. So like I was thinking, how much do I upcharge these to? Because obviously I want to make a profit, but obviously I have to factor in like the amount of time it took me to design it, all of this other stuff that you factor in. So I eventually on my Etsy store, I settled on, I think most of them. I mean, there's a couple of ones that haven't been like, they're kind of like misprints. They happen because they're like made like in batches, happen sometimes. Paint will go somewhere where it shouldn't, whatever. So I charge a bit less for them. General set price for them I've come to has been like $5.75 in general. And then at the store I have, the micro shop, I charge £8. And when I was writing that sign to put that I was selling them for £8, I was thinking, am I overcharging? Like, I don't want people to not buy them just because they're too expensive. But then I'm like, but I think to myself, I'm comparing prices of my work to like going into like a gift shop somewhere and buying mass produced pins made by like a factory company, whatever. And it's like you're making the wrong comparisons, but it's also hard to get into that kind of area where you're going to be facing general consumers, because like the whole thing of cheap prices, like great deals, has been so normalized now that people expect that. And it's like people jump at like having to pay more than £10 for a pin. And that's why my pins prices are so low, because I mean, I want to make a profit, but it's also like I don't want to like, you know, I'm in that weird dilemma of I don't want to charge too much, but at the same time I don't want to undercharge. And that's been the same thing as it's been a huge problem with my canvases. That is the biggest problem I've had, because like at least with like the pins and the shirts, I've had other smaller artists to like compare my prices to. But when it comes to my canvases and the way I produce work, like it doesn't take me that long to make a canvas. Like some people, it takes them hours. But for me, it takes maybe at most about 4 hours if I add all the time up. And like, you know, I'll be there and I'll be thinking, how much do I want to charge for this? Like, it's a piece of work that's original and, you know, I put my heart and soul into, and obviously I want to charge a fair amount, but at the same time, I don't want to overcharge for what it is.
Of course.
And it's very hard to get that sort of idea of how much to charge. So recently I've only been charging like just around the price of about 50, less than 50 for most of them. Normally it depends on the size, but you know, some people have been telling me, oh, you should charge more for them, but then I'm like, yeah, but where's the people who are going to be buying them? You know, it's hard.
Where's the line to cross, sort of, because like you say, different buyers will be in different situations as well, and people price it all differently. So yeah, I mean, money generally when you're pricing up, I can imagine, is quite a difficult one, and unless you compare with other creatives to get an understanding, because that's what I did when I started. But yeah, again, I still don't quite have a clear understanding myself on the way that I should price. But you know, but that's the thing. I just look online and type in something that's similar to mine, and I could sort of go, okay, there's someone here that's sold this many for this much, and then you get like a general, you know, estimate, don't you? Right? And if you don't sell, you bring it down. It's just sort of similar, you know, it's just basic sort of business in that you know, sort of sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of the interesting part. Like, I'm not even 100%. Like, I've obviously recently kind of had some issues with my shoulder, so that's kind of put into perspective like what I can kind of work with in a situation where I might not be as mobile. Thankfully it's improving a bit, but it's like it kind of helped me to kind of realize, hey, you're not like a machine. You need to think of like other stuff you can do that's a bit more like in your human lane, so to speak. So like I've had like a bad habit of, especially when I was making my student film, I've had a bad habit of shouldering the weight of everything, especially when it comes to technical stuff, by myself. So like I was thinking like, oh my God, being an animator is going to be so hard because I'm going to be here doing everything by myself. And then it only occurred to me recently, call me an idiot, but it only occurred to me recently, hey, when you watch a movie and there's all the credits and there's like hundreds of people that have worked on a film, that doesn't mean that one person has made that entire film by themselves, believe it or not. Like when you do anything, like there's lots of people involved in projects, like that should be an obvious thing, but for some reason it took me so long to figure out. But like, you know, that's been a thing. I think definitely working on projects with a group of people would be great. I would love to do that more.
Yeah.
And then like when it comes to my own work, I would say maybe like the way I see it is I'd be working on a project with like a group of people, like a studio or whatever, and I wouldn't have as much of a pivotal role. I would be more of like just there doing things. And then in my own time, I'd be kind of doing what I do now.
Yeah.
But like I have kind of taken illustration more seriously.
Right.
So like obviously in the fact that I've been painting a lot more and stuff like that. But I've also started writing a comic book, and that's turning out better than I thought. For some reason, my compositional skills have just come out of nowhere. I didn't even know I had compositional skills when it came to comic books, but there they are. So like I would definitely say that probably I would be more of like a kind of casual, like I'd be doing like more kind of administrative work when
Sure.
it comes to like animation. Like I'd be like, you know, helping out with like technical effects and stuff like that for like kind of main stuff. Maybe I'd be doing like art direction, like that sort of thing.
Okay.
Basically anything. The way I kind of see it is like whatever opportunity comes, I'll take it. Like be it like doing work for advertisements or like helping to make like being an editor on YouTube or anything, honestly. Like there's a lot of things that I do in my spare time that I would keep doing no matter what.
Yeah.
But like when it comes to my own projects, I would say like probably definitely mainly more illustrative things. Probably definitely maybe doesn't really make any sense, but hey. um but yeah, like I'm obviously working on my comic book. I would keep making my canvases. I would maybe see if I can go further with like maybe contacting a couple of like maybe smaller designers, like smaller fashion companies, stuff like that, seeing if, because you know, like sometimes they do collaborations and stuff,
Yeah.
like with whatever people are selling or making and stuff. Like, and especially now I have, like I was saying earlier, I have a bit more like confidence to approach smaller creatives, because a lot of them are more kind of aligning with my personal values. So it's like, hey, you know, I don't mind approaching them because I know that they're not like making all their stuff in sweatshops or whatever. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know, there's more of a kind of thing there. And also it's helping out another small creator. So I'd be totally down for that. Like I would love to do some form of fashion illustration, because I don't know if it's apparent with my work, but I really like designing kind of wacky outfits and stuff.
Sure.
So like that kind of thing is a lot of fun for me. So yeah, like honestly, the way I kind of approach it, when anybody says to me like, oh, what do you want to do in the future? It honestly comes to whatever lands in my lap, really. I've entered quite a few film festivals. Like I'm at a point right now where I've actually forgotten half of the ones that I've entered, because I was on Film Freeway, and I was like, oh, apply for that one, apply for this one, apply for this one. Like I've applied for basically all the free ones, and I've applied for like a couple where you pay for them.
Yeah.
Some of them are way out of my league. Like I applied for the London International Film Festival and the Golden Globes.
Wow.
Big surprise, didn't get into the Golden Globes. Don't understand why they rejected me, the audacity of them. But I just like the thought of someone at the Golden Globes having to watch my film to screen it to see if it will get in.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, didn't get into there, but not fussed. All of the huge ones didn't get into. I've entered a few in places and I've done fairly well. Like I've got like selected in quite a few, and I even became a finalist at the Hyderabad International Film Festival in India.
That's brilliant.
And there was two that I applied for that I was thinking, oh, I hope I get in, but I'll see what happens, because like a lot of them I'm only going to be hearing about over the next like couple of months, because obviously they're kind of trying to regain things after COVID and everything.
Yeah.
Some of them are being held online because obviously venues are still closed and stuff like that. Two of them was the Ramsgate International Film Festival, which is the one I posted about,
Yeah.
and the Animate Film Festival in Australia. The Animate Film Festival, I was like, I got an email basically saying that you didn't get in, and I was thinking, it's no big deal. I would have liked to, but it's no big deal. They emailed me about 4 weeks ago now saying, sorry, we made a mistake. You did get in, but we accidentally sent you the wrong email. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine by me. So I did that. But the Ramsgate International Film Festival, I'm really looking forward to, because it's it's in Ramsgate, but it's a bigger festival than it looks. It's always been kind of a big deal here.
Yeah.
I'm from Margate, but like, you know, we're kind of neighbours, us and
Oh yeah, no,
Ramsgate.
it's
So,
local, close to home, isn't it?
yeah,
So that's what makes it even more rewarding, I assume. So
definitely. And so I'm in the local category there, the local shorts category. So I'm probably going to be, from the look of the list, I'm mixed in with live action local films, and I'm going to assume a couple of animated films. And that's pretty cool because like when I looked at the amount of like people who are in that category, it's not that many. So it feels a bit, I feel a bit special that I was able to get in. And then there's like obviously international films that are going to be there.
yeah,
They actually asked for quite a lot of information when I like got in. They asked for like a bio, photo, loads of stuff that I didn't have to give to many of the other film festivals.
right.
So like that's given me kind of a boost to be like, maybe there'll be people watching that might want to know that information, because that would be pretty
Yeah,
cool if
no,
I could
that's
maybe
it.
get clients that way. So